The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are those of the producer and those appearing in this show and do not necessarily represent the views of DerryCAM, the town of Derry, or any of its staff or affiliates.
Hi, I'm Anthony Henry. Welcome back to America's Ask. We are on episode 25. It is very cold out today, and I did not have a jacket when I walked over here, so I'm glad to be in the heat. And anyway, we are here with Brian Chirichiello. He's been on the show before. He's a Derry Town Councilor, and he's the Rockingham County Commissioner. So for anyone that hasn't seen you on the show before, please take a minute to introduce yourself.
No, thanks for having me, Anthony. I'm Brian Chirichiello, long-term resident here in Derry. 35 years, town councilor, as you mentioned, and was elected as a Rockingham County Commissioner 3 years ago. So happy to be back.
Thank you for coming on.
Yes.
So we will get right into the topics, and in terms of New Hampshire politics, this is a big piece of news. We'll start with the Manchester election, because that was the biggest win. Jay Ruitt is now the mayor of Manchester, and we have a mostly Republican Board of Aldermen.
Yeah, so that's really big news for the Republicans. Really happy that Jay, I know Jay personally. Jay was a staffer with Frank Ginta many years ago. And when I supported Frank Ginta years ago, I knew Jay when he was a young man. So I've known him, I've seen his growth, and very, very excited that he won. He's really a super nice guy, and I think he'll do a tremendous job over there in Manchester. So that's good.
I door-knocked with him twice on the campaign, and the way he interacted with residents was just really cool. He like talked to them about what they actually, what they were concerned about. We ran into people that were not of his views many times, but he talked to them and he got like a common ground with them, which I don't think many of the Democrat candidates in Manchester did, specifically the Joyce Craig political machine, which destroyed Manchester. They had like 3 Republicans on the Board of Aldermen, and there were I don't know how many there are on the board.
Yeah, I'm not sure Manchester.
Everyone else was a Democrat. Now it's either dead even or a slight Republican majority on the Board of Aldermen.
That's good. That's good. And Manchester being the largest community in the state, I think it's good. And it speaks volumes. As you know, I had mentioned in my first show, it's good that the youth get involved in politics. Jay's a young man, and he's got super energy. I think he's going to do some good things.
School board was not as good in Manchester. Ken Tassi, who was the only real conservative Republican on the board, lost. But Joy Senecal, who we did have on the show, won her spot, Ward 10. Carlos Gonzalez is still on the school board, too. He's a Republican, kind of iffy, though. But school boards in general, we've talked about the Derry School Board at length. We talked about when John Dugan tried to shut me up that one time. That was funny. But we need to do a better job with school board elections in general. We're not winning. We need people that can win, and we need to make sure people realize why they should win.
Yeah, we got to get more people involved at the school level. I will say this, Anthony, I don't blame the current school board for the sort of the mess that we're in now. It's been a long time where the school boards kicked the can down the road on maintenance, delayed maintenance on these buildings. However, they ran for school board. They ran to solve some problems. So they've got to try to solve these problems. And the school board has got a really long task ahead of them. And I feel bad for them because it's going to be kind of painful.
Did you watch the blueprint presentation for the new school?
Yeah, I didn't watch the whole thing totally. I try to watch bits and pieces of it, but I do have a really good understanding as to the gist of it. So, I don't know where we're going to go with a brand new school. I don't know if we're going to get funding. There's limited funds at the state, and there's a lot of people that are asking for this. So, do we get it? Do we not get it? That's going to be a tough road too.
We've talked about the new school at length on the show. Derry may get a new school if it gets voted in. Probably not, though, because they need 66% of the vote, which is very hard to get, especially because it'll raise taxes.
Right. And then the big thing is, a lot of people don't realize this, that next month we get our tax bills, and the property owners, okay, in December, people are going to get sticker shock. Just telling people now that watch your show, they're going to look at the bill and they're going to say, what happened? And they immediately go to the town council and say, what's going on? But the fact of the matter is the increase in taxes that you see in December were from last March. Okay, in deliberative session, we went from $95 million to $105 million budget. That's huge. So that increase actually gets put on in December. People don't realize that, but that's what's happening. So it's going to be tough. The economy's tough right now. They're going to see an increase in their property taxes, mostly from the school. There will be a little bit from the town side, and zero from the county. We actually got a tax cut. Very small, but it's still a tax cut. So, but the fact of the matter is on top of that, next March, they're going to be asking for $100 million, possibly in bonding, and that's another huge increase possibility coming. And then thirdly, we're in a third year of a teacher's contract. So there's a lot of money that's going to be asked for. So I just recommend that people educate themselves on the process, how things happen there. If anyone has a question, they can certainly call me or ask, somebody that knows how that system works. So be prepared for that.
And in terms of the other elections that happened, Nashua, Michael Soucy lost, but quite narrowly. It was closer than I kind of thought it would be. In Berlin, New Hampshire, we actually did get a Republican mayor. His last name's Cohn. I forget his first name, but we got a couple mayor pickups.
That's good.
Besides Manchester. Keene will be interesting. I don't know when that'll be, but it might have happened yesterday. But we had what's the mayor's name in Keene?
Oh, I'm not exactly. I don't know. I'm not too familiar with Keene.
But it's the guy that ran for Congress. He retired unexpectedly, kind of.
Oh yeah. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. So yeah, and now we just look forward to next year's election, presidential, Congress, state house, all that.
Yeah. So it looks like we'll have the presidential primary sometime in January, and then we'll have the big one, the primary in September for state reps, state senate, county commissioner. And then of course November will be the general election. So we've got 3 elections coming up within the next year or so.
Plus the March election.
Plus the town, right. And in those seats are Phyllis Katsoukaris and Aaron Spencer. Those 2 seats. I think it's District 1 and an at-large town councilor seat will be up.
All right. So another topic that this just reminded me of. The third Republican presidential debate is tonight on NBC. I believe there's only 5 candidates in it: DeSantis, Haley, Vivek, Christie, and Tim Scott.
Right.
So they're narrowing it down.
Right.
Burgum did not get invited. Asa Hutchinson didn't get invited. Pence dropped out.
Right. And this is kind of what we expected, right?
Yeah.
Narrow it down. And I think you'll still keep narrowing it down until you get, 2 or 3 of your top tier candidates. And then we'll see how things kind of shake out by then. It was interesting that in Iowa, the governor endorsed Ron DeSantis, and the Trump campaign wasn't too happy about that. But, that's how it goes sometimes. But
do you think Trump is the front runner?
Well, all the polls say he is. So, you gotta sit there and wait till the people actually vote. You never know. Can be surprises. So.
I don't really pay attention to polls much myself. I really just, they're not usually correct if you look. You're
right. Because the last election, the polls had Republicans sweeping.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen.
And we won some, but not as much as they said.
Yeah. And so you just never know. I think sometimes people will say one thing, they'll just say some name, and they won't tell you the truth, or they'll go into the ballot box and just change. So until the election night's done, you'll never know. So we're going to see. It's going to be interesting.
So another thing, Israel is still ongoing. Like I said last episode and the episode before that, this is probably going to be something we'll be talking about every episode because it's just ongoing. It's going to have a big impact on national and world politics, not to mention state and local and county. But what are your thoughts? As if we don't know.
On the world itself
On
or the
Israel.
war? Yeah. Well, obviously Hamas did what they did on October 7th, which was horrific. We understand that, and they have a right to protect themselves. And so, you know, they're rooting out these terrorists. And unfortunately, you know, you have the Palestinian people who really live in poverty, who really don't want any part of that, are caught in between. So you can kind of see both sides of that. And it's just too bad that we're seeing a lot of spilt blood. I don't necessarily like to see that, but we'll see where it shakes out. I do think that you know, terrorists killing innocent people when Hamas did that, you know, in the kibbutzes was just bad. It was just a bad thing. So obviously, and sort of like 9/11, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see how that works out. I know that they're trying to get some of the hostages freed, and some discussion of halting some of the maneuvers temporarily, militarily, to see if we can get some hostages out. So let's see what happens.
So the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, proposed funding for Israel that would also simultaneously cut parts of the IRS
Right.
and put it into that fund.
Right, because the Biden administration added, I don't know what that number was, millions of dollars to add additional IRS people. So I guess the speaker is just saying, let's just use that money, prioritize that, use that money instead.
Yeah.
You know, and give that to aid to Israel. So,
Do you think that Biden has something to do with what happened in the Middle East? Because many people do, and just Biden's presence on the world stage, you can mention Afghanistan and all that.
I personally think Putin is behind some of this because it takes the pressure off of him in the Ukrainian war. So I do think China and Russia kind of are sort of behind this a little bit, putting pressure on the United States, getting the focus off of them. And this has been, you know, the Israelis and Palestinians have been fighting for forever. And I don't know when it's going to stop or if it will stop. You know, other parts of the world, like in Ireland, you know, the Catholics and the Protestants have been fighting for centuries.
Yeah.
You know, but it seems to be the Israeli-Palestinian issues are really on a lot of people's minds, you know, and, you know, we'll see how it all shakes out. I do think that they're taking advantage of Biden's weakness.
That's what I think too. Like I said, Afghanistan's a prime example. He botched the pullout entirely.
Right.
There was Ukraine. I don't think he handled that well either. I don't think it would have happened if we had another president in there. And Taiwan too. That's going to be something that we got to watch closely too. I know a couple state reps from New Hampshire just went there.
Yeah.
Representative Moffett and Representative Wallace. I think.
Right.
They went there. They met with some of the consulates and all that.
Yep.
So that was good. And still on Israel and that whole issue, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, who has a Palestinian flag outside her office and a gay pride flag, which I'm sure you see the irony in that, she was censured by Congress. And to my knowledge, I don't think this has happened since Paul Gosar was censured for whatever it is Paul Gosar did. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think they censured her because some of the wording that she used. I get that the fact that she's upset, being Palestinian herself, there's a lot of emotions. But when you use words like "from the river to the sea," that's a really horrible, horrible thing behind those words. And I think that's where people just said, as a leader in the United States, you can't be using those kind of terms or words, because that's just basically calling out that you want to wipe the Jews off the face of the earth. And that's uncalled for from any member of Congress or any leadership at all, or anybody, really.
Yeah.
And so, that's where the censure was. Can you empathize that she's worked up about innocent people and Palestinians getting killed? Yes. You can see that. But you can't be using those terrorist language. It's just not right.
Yeah, and I totally agree with her getting censured. I wish it happened long ago because she's had a history of doing stuff like this. Just look back, you'll see all sorts of stuff she said.
Yep. Yeah. So we'll see what happens from there. It's almost tit for tat with the, they're trying to censure Republicans now. That's really taking the focus off of what needs to get done.
And I think impeachment is a similar thing with that because both parties have, now that they've learned what impeachment is, they're going to use it as a political weapon.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens with the impeachment inquiry into Biden. I know many of the members of Congress support it and many of the senators on the Republican side, but I think it'll be interesting. I think we got to make sure, like I mentioned in, I forget when, but we got to make sure that it's all good claims that could get him into actual trouble and that we can use as actual leverage rather than just a political move.
Yeah. So I personally think he's going to drop out somehow, some way. And it won't be him that's going to run. So that's what I think. And then that'll all fall apart. We saw in a few swing states that Trump's actually ahead in polling.
He is leading, I think they took 5 or 6 swing states. He's leading 4 or 5 of them.
And the Democrats are there's a lot of infighting going on right now because of the Israel-Palestinian situation. So we'll see how that kind of shakes out. Yeah.
So moving on to you brought a sign with you.
I brought my sign here for county commissioner. And I've been a county commissioner for 3 years, so I got elected in 2020. And done 3 years, and there's so much good things happening at the county level. I could go on for over a half hour to let you know the good things that are happening. Unfortunately, they did what they called redistricting in 2020, and they're forcing 2 Republicans to run against each other. They moved some districts around in some towns. So I've got to run against a fellow Republican. And, we're both commissioners now. He hasn't even served a year yet. It's 9 months. And I've been there 3 years. So experience-wise, I've got the experience. On top of that, I think I had mentioned to you before, when you're a state rep, you also have county duty as a delegation member.
Yeah.
I did 10 years as a delegation member, 8 years on the executive board of that. So I've really been associated with the county and all the good things that are happening at the county for going on 12 years now. And so experience-wise, I feel that, I've got all the experience, and I would actually make the Republican ticket a lot stronger. So anybody that's interested in contacting me, you can reach me at Facebook. I'll give you my phone number if you want. It's 603-661-4835. Reach out if you have any questions at all about the county, what we do. I'm more than happy to answer those. So
I know you mentioned the tax cuts that are happening. What are some of the big accomplishments you've had from this term?
Yeah, so we're actually building a brand new building at the county. And so that's going to bring the Registry of Deeds and the county attorney's office and the sheriff's office in the new building. That's number one. Number two is we're going to add solar panels. We're going to have 12 acres of solar. We will be the largest solar in the state of New Hampshire in 1 year. That's going to offset $600,000 worth of our electricity bill that the county has in their budget. And then on top of that, we'll generate another $150,000 in revenues. Now that savings and that revenue is for the next 30 years. So we're going to save the taxpayers more than twice what it's going to cost. That's significant. That's number one. Number two, it's clean energy. So I know some people like solar, some don't, but the fact of the matter is we're going to lower our carbon footprint. We're going to save the taxpayers millions of dollars. So that's a big plus. The sheriff's office, we got 2 police dogs while I was there. County corrections, we're helping people that want help that are hooked on heroin and fentanyl. Okay, so not only on the sheriff's department, we're cracking down on drug dealers more and more, but we're also helping people that want the help. When they come to jail hooked on heroin or fentanyl, we're going to have programs to help them. And that's also part of the new building. My nursing home, okay, was deficiency-free for 2 years in a row, which means you have federal inspectors and state inspectors will come into the nursing home and look for any little thing that goes wrong. 2 years in a row, we've had no issues. That is unheard of. And so we have a rating with Medicare.gov. Okay, Medicare.gov will rate every single nursing home, private or public. And we rate as a 5-star, the highest rating. That's quite an accomplishment there. So there are a lot of great things happen at the county. My assisted living facility is completely full. I have a waiting list. So really, really tremendous things. And then on top of that, what I want to really stress is over the last 4 years, there's been, if you look at the 4 years of the taxation of people at the county, Rockingham County, 4 years ago, it was like, I'm going to just round it off, $50 million that we raised in property taxes. Then there was a tax cut. Okay, so but you stretch it out another 4 years, and we're at the same level. So for 4 years, technically, there's been no increase. So how do you do that when you've accomplished everything that we've accomplished and not ask the taxpayers for extra money is fantastic. And that's kind of the leadership that I'll bring. More good things happen if I get reelected. It's for a 4-year term again. So, and then that election will be in September. So hopefully people can reach out, respond, and I would love to have their vote.
Another thing I'll bring up is the jail.
Yes.
I know there have been some not so good things about the jail that I've heard. What's going on there?
What did you hear first?
Well, I heard some of the conditions aren't very good there.
Such as what now?
So, like the jail cells itself. Like a lot of it's, sketchy. Jails are sketchy in general, but
yeah, I mean, right. So the building's older, but we're working on a lot of that stuff as we speak. We're redoing all the showers per se, and we're working on all that stuff. I just toured it not that long ago. I didn't see anything that was horrendous, but just like you said, jail's a jail. It's not supposed to be,
not supposed
it's
to be
not supposed to be
hotel.
Sandals. You're going on a crew. You're locking up people that have issues. And but I haven't seen anything majorly bad about it. So, as a matter of fact, I think we've had a shortage of security guards, so we're getting more people in. We've actually increased pay there. So, yeah.
So another thing I'll mention before we run out of time is the governor election. As I mentioned earlier, the Joyce Craig political machine is falling. Her hand-picked successor, Kevin Kavanaugh, lost to a first-time runner. So what are your thoughts on the election? Now it's Joyce Craig, Cindy Warmington, Kelly Ayotte, Chuck Morse.
So I'm a Republican, so obviously I'm rooting for a Republican.
Yeah.
I know both Chuck Morse and Kelly Ayotte. Actually, when I had my own TV show here years ago, I had both of them on. But what I can tell you is this: I've actually seen Chuck Morse. I was at the State House when he was at the State House, and he was Senate President. I know what he's accomplished already at the State House, so I know he can do the work easy. And that's not to say that Kelly can't, but I've seen Chuck in action. And regionally, Chuck's done a lot with wielding water through from Manchester all the way to Salem, Atkinson, Plastow. So he's a team player, Chuck. So I'm really kind of rooting for Chuck Morse to be the governor. So, but I think either one of them would make a good governor. And
better than the other two. I think it was really interesting Sununu didn't run, because he would have had it locked up if he did. And interesting he didn't run for president either. I thought he'd run for president.
He's got young kids. I think he's ready to do something in the private world and make some money.
I know
Get
he's
his kids
involved
ready for
with-
college. So,
I know he's involved with World Economic Forum too.
yeah.
John Sununu is his brother.
Yeah, I knew his brother. Actually, his family lived down the road from me in Salem.
Oh,
So I knew John Sununu Sr. I knew the dad before he was chief of staff of Bush. So he used to come into my father's store all the time, and I would see him. So
Yeah.
I know the family, good family, and they've always been active in the state. So
all right. We are almost out of time, so feel free to give a closing statement before we go.
yeah, no, thanks Anthony for having me. I appreciate it. I think you've got a really great show here. I've been watching. You know, I get those little notices, and I've watched, and you outdo yourself each and every time. So I think you're getting more and more comfortable in that. I'm really amazed at the knowledge that you have on the political spectrum in the world. I think that's great. And as I mentioned before, you know, the younger generation has to get involved. They have to shape their own world. Us older people won't be here forever. And what I don't want to see is apathy. I want to see people get involved. Whether we agree or disagree, just get involved. And I give you kudos for getting involved.
Thank you. Thank you for coming back on the show. It won't be, well, next episode, not this episode, but by next episode, I will have had my first meeting on the New Hampshire Legislative Advisory Council, Youth Legislative Advisory Council. So I'm doing preparations for that. That'll be
Good.
interesting. Looking forward to it. It'll be an experience. Not really sure what to expect, but I'm just going to go right into it. But
Great.
again, thank you for coming back on.
You're welcome. Anytime. I appreciate you having me come on.
Thank you. I'm Anthony Henry. This has been America's Ass. Thank you for watching.